Welcome back, everyone, and hello to all the new faces. Today I thought I'd cover some news stories that kind of piqued my interest and maybe pique yours as well. Today we'll be covering things like Kenobi news, Star Wars, the MCU shows, and a few articles about DC. So firstly I'm going to start with Kenobi, specifically Season 2. While there have been some speculation about a Kenobi Season 2, recent reports seem somewhat hopeful but also unlikely. So Deborah Chow, the director and showrunner of Season 1, she said in a recent interview, it was conceived as a limited series, like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it is one big story, and it was never meant to be, like, you're never meant to be. So you can never say never, she says, and you can never tell what happens in the future, but if another series were to happen, it would be the same process of making sure there was a story to tell. While Kathleen Kennedy has also shared her thoughts on the matter, I never say never, because there is always a possibility. That show was so well received, and director Deborah Chow did a spectacular job. Ewan McGregor really wants to do another, and everybody is all hands on deck with what they're doing right now, as you can see by what they announced at Celebrations. We'll turn our attention again to that maybe down the road. So this is relatively interesting. So Ewan wants to do it again. Deborah Chow knows that there's a story to tell, but doesn't know if there's a future, so she'll keep it, kind of at the end. In another interview, Kathleen Kennedy said if they can come up with an interesting story, or if they can come up with something to tell or something to do, but that's if there is something there, or if that is to happen. So not seeming very hopeful in her team, her, her writers and all that there, which, totally understandable. It does not seem like any of them actually understand Star Wars. Ewan also stated in another interview that there's 10 years between 3 and 4, episodes 3 and 4, and there's a lot of story to tell. He always thought there was, he always felt like there was, which is very true. If you've read the comics, you know that a lot goes on between those two spaces of time. So that's interesting. There is a story there, they just have to find the right one that'll be compelling, because Season 1 was great, but there were some elements in it that kind of got looked on more than others, and those elements are the ones that inevitably kind of broke the show. Like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, Hayden and Ewan, they basically they were the top tier. They ran the show, they were the show. Then you added in stuff like Reva and all that, and it's just convoluted. So that's my thoughts on it. Would you like to see Kenobi Season 2? Let me know down below, and we'll talk about that further. However, moving on, we got some more Star Wars news. So Idris Elba is rumoured to be playing a villain in the upcoming Rey movie. So there isn't much to talk about on this topic. There isn't a lot of info, but it's been the talk of Twitter for the past couple of days, which obviously is never a heavily reliable source, but there's been some kind of speculation and some word through the grapevine that this is a possibility of happening. So there's been no interviews, none of that type of stuff, but they've said that he has had talks with the people at Disney and Lucasfilms and all that type of stuff, and it's possibly going to be the villain for the upcoming Rey movie that was announced 15 years after Episode 9, I believe, where she'll be rebuilding the Jedi Order. So this would be cool. I'd love to see Idris Elba play a villain, like a Sith or something like that. Like, that'd just be crazy, man, if you just had, like, oh my god, don't even get me started. And lastly, next up in Star Wars news, some Ahsoka news. So, a few days ago, we got news that the late Ray Stevenson's character, Baylan Skoll, is a survivor of Order 66, and alongside it, we got some stills that I'll play up here now, we're already playing. So this is interesting in itself. So it was said in one of the old novelizations from episode 1 to 3 that about 50 to 100 Jedi survived. This has got people in an absolute uproar. Which, it shouldn't really. Like, 50 to 100 survived, confirmed by George Lucas, but then when you think about in that galaxy far, far away, there's got to be trillions of individuals. Like, whatever species, race, planets, all that type of stuff. So it makes sense that a couple of the Jedi survived. Plus, they set that up in Episode 3 when Yoda and Obi-Wan called off the alarm thing to, like, the alert to tell all remaining Jedi to kind of stay away. And it doesn't really break the Yoda and Luke speech where he said to Luke, "You're the last Jedi." Since he was technically the last Jedi following the Order, following the path, others had gone into hiding, gotten rid of their power, had been killed by Vader up until that moment of time in Episode 4. What was that, 5? Anywho, so it makes sense that some would survive We're not including ones like Ahsoka or Ezra or any of that, but there have been a lot like there. But the trope that is coming up is just in every single show we seem to be getting some. So we're seeing like in Kenobi there was like 4 or 5, or if you want to include the Inquisitors, there was like a whole handful. We had some in Bad Batch, we had some in Rebels, like stuff like that. You know, like Kanan and all that. So yeah, it makes sense, and it shouldn't really be, you know, put down like that. Like, it's getting a little bit tropey, but if the story is done well, I believe that it can be a compelling, you know, like survivor, and if you understand what I mean. Anyway, there was also one Inquisitor we haven't seen before in live action, or maybe ever, that has piqued some fans' interest, as the armor looked a lot like Galen Merrick's, which was Starkiller from the Force Unleashed games. Although I don't believe this is him. I personally would like to think that it is Barriss Offee, or likely a new character who will probably die instantly. But the armor clearly resembles Starkiller, and I am here for that. So I really do hope that it is Barriss, as they said that a lot of the... there was a recent article by Empire, which we will talk about soon, and they briefly mentioned the Barriss episode as a 2-watch, which, I mean, it is the one where Ahsoka left the Order because of her. So that makes kind of sense. But there have also been some rumors and speculations that Barriss was to appear, so it'd be interesting if that was her, because she was obviously influenced by the dark side. Also in these stills, we see Sabine wielding Ezra's lightsaber against Shin Hati, who potentially looks to be in possession of Kanan's, as the head of the hilt looks a lot like his. And this has also got people angry for some strange reason, because they think that a Force wielder can't use a lightsaber, which is not true. They can, just takes a lot of practice, and a Jedi can, or a Force wielder can use it a lot more efficiently, because they, especially if they connect with their own Kyber crystal, and can actually unleash the full potential of the saber. Whereas Sabine was trained by Kanan to wield the Darksaber, then she also used Ezra's against the Mandalorians there, when she had to go like free her people in that whole episode in Rebels. So she knows what she is doing. She clearly has the ability to use it, so I don't see why, and considering Ezra is kind of gone and she's on the quest for him, she'd have the lightsaber, so it makes sense. And then she's fighting Shin, who looks like it's Kanan's lightsaber, though that is not confirmed. It just kind of, I'll put some photos up now, it kind of looks a lot like Kanan's lightsaber, just like the top of the hilt. You know how in Rebels, if you've seen it, he would detach the hilt and then like put it back together, and that'd be like the lightsaber, so that's really interesting. So, as we were just speaking about with the Barriss episode was suggested by Empire, Empire released an article about the Ahsoka-centric episodes of previous animated shows to watch to be prepared for her solo debut, and this is how the list goes. The Clone Wars Season 5 Episode 20, The Wrong Jedi, which is the episode where she does leave the Order. Rebels Season 2 Episode 22, Twilight of the Apprentice. Rebels Season 4 Episode 13, A World Between Worlds. Rebels Season 4, Episodes 15 and 16, Family Reunion and Farewell. So, if you haven't already, definitely watch these episodes, binge the whole series, as August 23rd we'll be getting Ahsoka Season 1. So that is your viewing list, and that is your viewing order, and that is your homework for the next... Well, you've got a couple of months, so you can get that done. And it's going to be interesting, but that's Star Wars done. I could ramble on about this for a bit longer, but I'm already at 10 minutes and I've only talked about Star Wars, and we still got some Marvel and DC news to get onto. So let's kick that off. So this is the Marvel news coming up next. It isn't massive, but some moviegoers said that the audio for Across the Spider-Verse was off in some viewings. So this week Sony actually sent out a clip of the film, like another copy of the film, adjusting the sound mixing issues and all that type of stuff. So I didn't know if it was me or my local theatre, but in some scenes the sound just did kind of feel a bit off. The dialogue was difficult to understand at some times. So comment below if you had that problem at your local theatre, especially at the start with Gwen, and then when we get the introduction to Spider-Punk, when Spot is entering that thing in Mumbattan there, it kind of all felt a bit, you couldn't really hear the dialogue, you couldn't hear what they were saying, and it felt a bit off. So a lot of people have reported that. So it turns out we're not weird, it just turns out that it wasn't mixed properly. Then next at Marvel, along with a recent name change from New World Order to Brave New World, we now also have some Captain America 4 set picks to go over. So some people think that we have a Daredevil connection and a Red Hulk connection. So first up in the photo where the name change came from, if you look closely, Harrison Ford seems to have ripped pants, leaving some people speculating that a Red Hulk appearance will be in this film. This could be from an action scene, a blast, burning, tearing his clothes, or even the latter. So it seemed to only be his pants. But what do you think? Do you think we'll see Red Hulk or not? Because as we know, the Hulks are infamous for hulking out. They tear their pants, their shirts come out, somehow their pants don't, and they're just all that type of stuff. And when they turn back in, they've still got damaged clothing, all that big trope. So it was really interesting that some people pointed that out while he's on the set chair there. So it could be cool. I really wish that they held it out for Thunderbolts, as that's meant to be a centric movie, but it'd just be nice to get that introduction. We need some more, not more Hulk, but more Hulk mythos and all that, like, you know. And then now for the next set photos, look like their kind of take on Chinatown in the MCU, so MCU's take on the Chinatown, with a specific location being called Canal Street, which is a key location in the Daredevil comics, first introduced in Daredevil issue 170 from 1981, serving as a hideout for the Hand. So why I don't think we're going to be seeing the Hand in this movie, it is interesting because Daredevil is playing such a prominent part now in the MCU. So he was first showing up in properties like Spider-Man, we saw him, and then he came into She-Hulk, literally, and then he's there was some references to his characters obviously in Hawkeye, but he was not in it. He's got his own show coming soon, and potentially he's going to be an Echo. So it's really interesting that Daredevil's being prominently put into the MCU now. So it wouldn't be too far off to see that he could turn up for maybe a brief cameo to team up with Falcon, or not Falcon anymore, with Sam Wilson's Captain America, or even just kind of gloss over a little introduction for his series, you know, if it was him, and because Elektra is in these comics too, the specific ones we're talking about, so we could kind of see them, since she's just been cast, in like the Chinatown, you know, doing their thing, or, you know, if they're interrogating someone bad, you know, Sam and I believe Yolkin's going to probably be like the new Falcon, and if they're interrogating someone and they're like, you know, like the devil came and got me, so that'd kind of be cool, but you don't need to throw him in everywhere. But I would not say no to seeing some Daredevil, man. Now, lastly, we're going to gloss over some DC news. So, we have some reports of some upcoming additions to James Gunn's Superman Legacy. This is including characters from another project Gunn has announced, that being the Authority. We're also set to potentially see Manchester Black, like the Elite, all of that. So, and there was that tweet from a while ago where Gunn said something and he ended it with the mermaid emoji, which is kind of looking like it was referencing Peacemaker and Vigilante. So, we don't specifically know the role they're going to play. Like, if you look back at the comics, they're not inherently bad, but they're not inherently good, but they're not necessarily anti-heroes. Like, they want to do good. Apollo's inspired by Superman. If you go and read, we actually just been speaking about it on our shorts, Instagram, all that type of stuff. There was a 4-issue run called Superman and the Authority, where it's not the whole Authority. That was like what they named themselves eventually, the Elite, but it wasn't necessarily the Elite. But we see Manchester Black, Apollo, and Midnighter, who the latter two, Apollo and Midnighter, we've also just done a character explanation breakdown on our shorts and TikTok and all of that. So if you want to learn about them, because not a lot of people seem to know who the Authority are. So I don't know the role that they'll play, whether it'll be to set up their film, as it's going to be animated though. So if they're going to be in this, it's going to be live action, obviously. So that's kind of cool too. Whether they'll be, you know, hired by Lex. Lex is said to be in it, destroying Superman with politics. Whether they'll, you know, help Superman like they did in the Superman the Authority comic. Yeah, there's a whole plethora of things here where we could see them kind of pop up. Whether it could even just simply be like a one and done cameo. We don't know the full extent of it. There's been no casting announcements or anything like that, as it's still very, very far away, this actual new DCU. And whether it'll actually be all of them or not, like the whole of the Authority, I believe the original lineup, which we are breaking down, there's a video coming on that soon too. It was only about 6-7 people, and then the group has expanded to like upwards of like 15-20 over the years since Wildstorm ended up becoming DC. Well, not becoming, but got rolled into it. Anyway, so it's going to be interesting. People are saying the Authority. It could just be, since there was Manchester Black, I'm thinking it is like the Superman the Authority comic book, which was a very interesting take on it. I just finished reading it again, so I heavily recommend that one for anybody. Now that is a quick overview of some recent news, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll answer all your comments. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe, comment below, and we'll have a little discussion about it all. And yeah, just if you haven't already, feel free to follow the channel too, where I'm just a small channel trying to grow. A lot of interesting stuff coming, kind of putting my heart and soul into a lot of these, and it's been really fun. So I just kind of want to get it out there and just get people's feedback and just grow a little bit, man, obviously, as we all do at the end of the day. So thank you, and until next time, that is Comics out.